how can you better relate to your inner struggles? And really, it's these inner struggles that when they get to this tipping point, that's when we get triggered, right? That's when this inner struggle spills over into our outer life, into our world. And that's when we get into trouble.
You're watching Developing Potential with Diana Keuilian.
Hi, friends. Today we're going to talk about how can we avoid getting triggered. Now, we've all had the experience of getting triggered, and it looks a little bit different for all of us. Maybe for you, it's anger. Maybe you snap at people and you say things that you don't really mean that end up doing damage to your relationships. Or maybe your version of getting triggered is more internal, and it's more, I'm going to go and I'm going to soothe myself by drinking alcohol or eating foods that I shouldn't eat, doing things that are self-destructive to calm these emotions. Because when we're triggered, these are big emotions that come up, and they could be overwhelm, it could be anger. These intense emotions come up. And then our system has to figure out how to diffuse them. And quite often, the way that we diffuse them can be very harmful. And so the concept we're going to talk about today is really gaining popularity because it works. And it's called parts work. If this is your first time hearing about parts work, this can be such a transformational concept. And we talk about how we are made up of these three systems, right? Our physical body, we have our emotional network, and our thinking mind. And really the goal and the key to mental health and wellness is integration between the systems. And so what I love about parts work is that this is a way to really integrate your thinking mind with that emotional network to bring that logic over to this, the emotional side, so that we can take a step back from just being in the moment of feeling the emotions and feeling that these emotions are us. Like we are this emotion right now, and we are this moment of being triggered, and not being able to separate, to be able to kind of observe, being that curious observer of what's happening inside of me right now, which really puts you in the power position to be able to make some different decisions. And so if you're familiar with left brain, right brain, I like this concept because, left brain is all about logic, and it's rational, and it's, there's a lot of thinking through. And then right brain is emotional and imaginative and creative. And there's this divide that happens when we're in the process of being triggered, where it's full-blown right brain emotions. And this is why we see logic kind of go out the window, right? And so this concept that we're going to get into of thinking of your mind as having multiple parts, or thinking of it as being a multi-dimensional mind rather than a singular mind, as a way to really separate from the emotion of the moment. So we're really taught that we have a singular mind, and it can be kind of confusing because on any given day, at any given moment, you probably have contradictory thoughts, you have contradictory desires, and you have an inner struggle that happens. One part of you pulls you this way, another part of you pulls you that way. And just starting to think of your mind as having different parts and not having it be weird, or, we kind of immediately go to this thought of multiple personality disorder, which is not at all what we're talking about, right? What we're talking about is these different urges, these different tendencies. And the way that I picture it, we've talked about the emotional network, and I picture the emotional network having actual switches, like light switches on it. We talk about being triggered. It's almost like flipping a switch, right? And so for me, when I think of my parts, I think of my tendencies of where I'm going to get triggered. So what's the benefit of thinking of your mind as having multiple parts to it, as opposed to just being one singular mind? Really, the biggest part is in creating that separation between you and the emotion. So taking on that role of this curious observer and noticing. So let's give an example of what this looks like. So most of us have a soothing part. So let's say you've had a long day at work. For me, I used to be a wine drinker, and so I would be driving home from work, and my soothing part would come up, and it would be like, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be great to just crack open a bottle of wine when you get home so you can just take the edge off and, get that soothing, get that relaxation that you want. Well, I also have a part that is very focused on health and fitness. And so this part of me would immediately chime up and be like, nope, we don't need alcohol today. This is not going to keep you on track with your fitness goals. You're not going to feel good tomorrow. It's going to negatively impact your sleep. And then I have another part that's very driven and work oriented. And so that part is like, oh my gosh, this is going to impact you. Have a paper to write. You got to work on that tonight. And so maybe this sounds familiar to you, having all of these different opinions and thoughts coming up in your mind. Now, when you have the mindset that, hey, it's just me, they're all me, it can be pretty confusing and frustrating, right? And then if we want to talk about serious addiction, well, this is the same process that happens, right? Where part of the person who's addicted is like, hey, I need this soothing agent. I need this. But then most people have a manager part that really wants you to do the right thing, wants you to do what's going to help you be healthy. And so then that part is coming up and saying no, we're not going to do this. We've been over this a million times. We're going to make different choices, right? And so all of these parts inside of us want something for us that they think is good. And so this whole concept of starting to look at your thoughts as coming from different parts of you, which means you've stepped back and you're observing, almost like you're observing this conversation between different parts, helps you from just emotionally making a decision, right? It puts you in this power position. So for myself, I say I used to be a wine drinker because last year I did stop drinking alcohol. And it was easy for me to do because I had gotten to know this soothing part of me, the part that would chime up on that drive home like, gosh, you've got this great bottle of red. We're going to open it. And I know what that part needs. And so for me now, Epsom salt baths are one of my favorite soothing activity when I feel that part starting to get a little activated, I need some kind of soothing. That's something that I've found is all of my other parts can get on board with, right? My health part is like, hey, this is great. This is good for us, right? And so what we're doing here is, again, we're finding this integration. So when we think about left brain, right brain, and how the left brain, all this logic and all of this rational thinking, and then the right brain, which is just so much messier. When I think of the left brain, I think of just almost like an Excel spreadsheet. And then I think of the right brain, and it's almost just like splatters of paint on a canvas. It's colorful and it's fun and it's in the moment. And so thinking of your thoughts and starting to identify these different parts of yourself is a way to really access that left brain logic, rational, let's do the right thing for the whole gang. And it helps by stepping back and out of all of those emotions that we're gonna feel. So all of your parts have good intentions, and they're really there to help keep you safe. Now, all of these ideas they're just ideas on how we can better understand ourselves and better manage our inner world, right? There's no right or wrong when it comes to how you conceptualize your inner world. And so that's why, in psychology, there's so many different concepts like this one. And if you want to learn more about this one, there's a book called No Bad Parts by Dr. Richard Schwartz. It's a great place to start if you really want to dig in and start learning about this way of relating to yourself. But I love how there's no right or wrong, because it's how can you better relate to your inner struggles? And really, it's these inner struggles that when they get to this tipping point, that's when we get triggered, right? That's when this inner struggle spills over into our outer life, into our world. And that's when we get into trouble. And so, this idea might sound kind of weird that like, hey, you've got different parts. You've got a soothing part and you've got this manager part. What does that mean? Well, really, it's just a way for me to understand my own tendencies. I like to think of the emotional network, and I think of this as just like limbic channels or limbic characters. And there's theories on where they come from. Could be from different traumas, most likely, that are centered around a negative self-belief. But really, none of that matters when it comes to applying this concept to your life. When you apply this concept to your life, you have a tool so that when you start to feel an inner struggle, you can step back and you can start identifying, right? You're in that place of the curious observer. And it's such a powerful place to be because we're no longer just going with whatever's happening. We aren't that internal struggle. We're observing that internal struggle. And so depending on how far you want to take this, I've done parts work for a little over 1.5 years. And for me, the more that I could really flush out in my mind these different characters, and again, this isn't a personality thing. I don't have multiple personalities. Very, very, very few people on the earth do. This is just a way to conceptualize your different needs, your different tendencies, right? And so for me, I have 6 very specific ones. And so when one of them starts to get activated and wanting something, it's usually, right? Like we start to feel an emotion come up. We start to feel needs like, I need to fix this. I need to get some kind of relief from this. I'm able to identify who it is, what they want, and I also know healthy ways to meet those needs. The really powerful thing about doing parts work is that it takes you from a place of being vulnerable to get triggered and to feel like you don't have control, right? Like these emotions are coming up and they're taking over and you're just along for the ride. So it takes you out of that and it puts you in this place where you start to understand what these triggers are. And the craziest part of all, and it takes a while to get here, but trust me, friends, it's possible to get to a place where you feel appreciation for all of these different parts because you know the intention behind these emotions, the intention behind these parts is to keep you safe. Now, they're not always pushing you in the right direction, and we know that, and that's where we're pulling our left brain into this so that we can get some more logic and rational thinking, right, to diffuse those emotions. But at the core of all of these parts of you is good intention for you. So when you can get to the place where you feel the trigger, you feel the emotions, and your immediate response isn't frustration, it isn't anger, it isn't overwhelm. It's curiosity. And they're like, okay, I know who this is. I know why this is happening. And then it's appreciation. And you can actually feel appreciative of these protective energies that come up in you. And the cool thing is when you counter that triggering emotion with some directed appreciation, how quickly it diffuses. And that is like one of the secrets to really turning your inner world from a place that has conflict and struggle and where you feel like you're being pulled back and forth to a place where you really have calm and you feel that you're sitting in this position of observing, you're sitting in this place of understanding of your system, and then a place of control, of being able to take care of the struggle and the emotions internally and not letting that spill out into your life in a way that causes problems. And so that's truly what it means to really avoid getting triggered. to be able to understand the different parts of you, to be able to step away from them, respond to them internally, and really to meet their needs in a healthy way. All right, friends, so extra credit for this week. The next time that you feel yourself getting triggered, instead of just going with it, ask yourself, who is this? And start doing some exploring and start to get to know that part. Get to know why they're getting triggered, what their need is, what's their intention, what are they trying to protect you from or keep you safe from, right? Start doing that exploring work so that you can come to this place where you're no longer vulnerable to getting triggered, but that you're in the place of control and really just this place of appreciation and acknowledgement of all of these amazing parts of your mind. You know, if you want to take it further, really look for some different books out there. No Bad Parts is a great place to start. It's by no means the only book out there, but I think he does a great job of just explaining this whole concept and then make it your own. I think that's the biggest thing, is making this concept work for you. Because like I said, this is just an idea. It's just a concept to help you better relate to your own inner world. And so it's moldable to you. So when you read No Bad Parts, you know, he talks about just dozens and dozens of these different parts. And for me, I had to distill all of those different parts down into 6 specific characters so that I could feel like I understand each of them. And I could fit it all into 6 characters. And for me now, it's very tangible. Like, it's part of my inner world on a day-to-day basis, checking in with these 6 parts. And it's really transformed my ability to really not get triggered and to have this inner calm and this appreciation of things that would in the past irritate me, right? Parts of me, emotions and desires that would come up that in the past I would feel upset about or maybe bad about. Now I feel appreciation and like a little bit of wonder, like, this is so cool. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and drop a comment. I'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching Developing Potential with Diana Keuilian.